Justice Secretary Robert Buckland is here with me this morning. Good morning,
Good morning,
Minister.
Kay.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Some figures to start with, if I may. Many people saying the rise in demand was predictable. 85% of the population unable to get a test yesterday if they wanted one. 46 out of the 48 hotspots in the United Kingdom, in England, no facilities. How difficult can it be when we knew it was coming to make sure that this is happening?
Well, look, I think that all of us are seeing these difficulties. I think that as the schools have come back, as families have tried to get back to normal with work and childcare, the complications of life really make things much more challenging. And I think that, frankly, we have worked so hard to scale up capacity. We're still not there, but the rate of increase is remarkable. It's now outstripping other European countries. What I would say is that I think it's incumbent on all of us to do the right thing for our family, but remember that there are a lot of other people out there who need those tests. I think the lab capacity, the laboratory capacity has been an issue. We're working our way through that. We're increasing the number of test centres. We've got 400 test centres, getting it up to 500. But clearly there's still real challenges. And I don't think
85% of the population.
Well, and I understand that, Kay. I'm not sort of trying to shy away from the scale of the challenge. But, when you get the test, the return rate is very good. It's nearly 90% coming back the day after, and that's good and quick. But I think the announcement by Matt Hancock yesterday to create a prioritisation system is the right thing to do. Now, he's going to develop that very quickly over the next few days to explain to us what that looks like. But I think all of us who know and have been here through testing, and you've asked me some searching questions in the past about this, will know that it has to be the NHS first and then social care. And then I think what we need to do is have a cascading system where we know where our priorities should be. And for me, priorities should be for children in school and their parents in order to make sure that their lives are safe and also, importantly, they're not disrupted in the way that we're seeing.
We were told that the government allocated £10 billion for test and trace systems for England, 100 times the Public Health England's annual budget for infectious diseases. What have we spent it on?
Well, I think we've spent it as quickly and as sensibly as possible on getting the systems right.
85% of the population can't get a test.
Well, Kate, I'm not shying away from the current issue.
10 billion quid.
I'm not shying away from that. But what I'm trying to explain is that rather than us sitting back and pretending all is well, we've accepted the scale of the challenge. We're ramping up the test centres. We have increased laboratory capacity, new labs coming on stream so that we can get that quick turnaround and reduce the quarantine.
The second wave wasn't a surprise.
Well, no, and in fact, the government kept on saying about the dangers of a second wave. At all times, the Prime Minister, all of us, were absolutely focused on the dangers of a second wave. We've seen what's happening in France. We absolutely are on to this in terms of understanding that through the autumn, if we're to get the balance between getting the economy back on track and getting our children into school, then all of us have now a special responsibility to follow all those guidelines and do whatever it takes to beat this virus.
Minister, you're a decent man. How difficult is it to come on the programme and defend the government's response?
Well, look, I'm here as a government minister and I take full responsibility. But what I would say is that I think that the government has absolutely committed not just money, but resources, time, the energy that is needed.
But you could do better,
to scale this up.
A lot better.
Okay, we can always do better, but the rate of increase is now outstripping countries like Germany and other European countries.
We don't care. My viewers don't care. Well, they don't care. They care about the fact that 85% of them can't get a test. And the government, you in the shape of the government this morning, are coming on and saying we're doing our level best. It's not good enough.
Well, I would say that the rate and pace of increase is really positive. And I know that...
Oh, Minister, 85% of the population can't get a test. That's not good enough.
But as I've explained to you, we're already taking the measures on testing centres, on laboratory capacity.
Too late.
All the things. Well, I'm sorry, I do not agree. I think that the issues that we are now facing with regard to the way in which the rules are applied have created this increased demand. And we are absolutely committed to making sure that we can deal with these problems and minimise the disruption that is being caused.
talk to me about the internal market bill. It depends what you call it as to which newspaper you're reading this morning. Apparently, that you've been involved in negotiating with the Prime Minister and also one of the Tory rebels, Bob Neill, to try and come up with a way through this melee. Have you?
Well, I don't think it'd be right of me to start talking about private conversations.
Have you been involved with private
But what I
conversations?
can say is there are lots of discussions going on with MPs from all parts of the debate, not just Bob Neill, but MPs in all parts of the Conservative Party. We want to get on with this job. We want to get this bill through. We want to make sure that we are ready for any disagreements or disputes that might arise if we don't get agreement in the Joint Committee. And that's what we're planning on. You know, for me, I just want Brexit sorted. The issue you asked me at the top of the programme is the important one to me, to my family and to all the people who are watching, and that's COVID and the need for us to deal with it.
But Brexit will be a big issue as well, of course, going forward, and you need to plan for that. Have you been having conversations with Bob Neill? You can tell me that.
I talk to Bob Neill regularly.
Have you been having conversations with Bob Neill about the internal market bill?
I have talked to Bob Neill about the internal market bill.
Have you spoken to the Prime Minister about your conversations with Bob Neill about the internal market bill?
Okay. It's tempting for me.
Yes or no?
Look, I've had lots of conversations.
I'm not asking what you said. I'm just asking whether you've had a conversation.
I've had lots of conversations with colleagues. Ultimately,
what about the Prime Minister?
It is up to the Prime Minister and those responsible
for
business in Parliament.
We want to know that you're doing your best.
Well, look, I always do my best to try and get things sorted. That's the sort of person I am. I'm trying to help get a solution, but it's not all down to me, Kay. It's down to every member of the Conservative Party, member of Parliament, to come together and get this sorted.
Now, I heard you at the weekend talking about whether we might break the law or not, and you obviously know I was going to ask you about this. If the government enacts the bill, then we could potentially be breaking international law. Does that make your position untenable?
Well, as I said on the weekend, I don't think we are at that stage. And, you know,
if we
reach that stage, the reason for it is because we judge that, sadly, despite everybody's best efforts, the EU is in a position where we think they are actually breaching their obligations to us. So it's like an international dispute where clearly there's a breach somewhere, but it's going to be the subject of a lot of argument. Now, I'd like to avoid that. I think we can, but we do need to just prepare for that contingency, that break glass in case of emergency provision that I believe this is. Given
your job, QC, if we break the law, does that make your position untenable?
If this country breaks the law and does so, you know, in a way that is clear and in a way that, you know, cannot be judged, you know, finally or fudged in any way or looked at.
Breaking the law.
There are
QC.
Yeah, no, I get that, but there are lots of debates about precisely what the law means in this area. I've said that if the law is breached in a way that I find unacceptable, of course I will go. But I do not believe we're at that stage. I think that we can resolve this. I think that there's a will, certainly on the side of the United Kingdom, to get on with this negotiation. But at the end of the day, we've got to protect our United Kingdom and our internal market. And frankly, there's no dispute about that. I think any Conservative MP faced with that sort of crisis, that emergency, would want to invoke the provisions that we are seeking to pass.
OK, Jeremy Wright and Geoffrey Cox both think that it's unconscionable that this country should, justly famous for its regard for the rule of law around the world, should act in the way that we are.
Well, I think my colleagues are absolutely right to sound the alarm about a flagrant and egregious breach of the rule of law, something that is beyond any doubt or argument. I don't believe.
Right.
But I do not believe that we're there. We're not at that stage. We're at a stage where we
And
are
you would
preparing.
resign before we got there?
Look, I think that if we got to the stage where clearly there was the United Kingdom was in a position where it had not discharged its obligations, then that would cause me a problem. I don't believe we're going to get there because I see this government in the United Kingdom as doing everything they can to discharge their obligations, to do the right thing, to act in good faith, but to protect the integrity of our internal market.
You've answered all my questions. I appreciate it. We've got two very quick questions before we let you go. We're almost out of time. The reason that you're here today, sentencing overhaul? Any more?
Yes, so I'm publishing a white paper, it's like a policy paper to explain the government's position, and then we can pass laws to enact that. I want to deal, first of all, with some of the more serious cases. So whole life, that is life meaning life for child killers. I want to increase the maximum penalty for causing death by dangerous driving from 14 years to life. So quite a lot of important changes that will increase confidence. I want to extend the time for which serious violent and sexual offenders actually serve in prison, so that the public feel that a higher degree of justice is done. But I'm also going to reform the probation service, strengthen community orders, and give the public and judges more confidence that when a community order is passed, it'll actually make a difference and help people who want to take that help away from a life of crime. So lots in this package to try and deal with more lower level offending, but also to toughen up and tighten up very sentences for very serious crime.
Goodness, a lot for you to do. Let's hope we don't break the law and then you can stay in post.
Thank you.
Obviously, the Abbott question is coming. Kevin Rudd is on the programme later on today. He lost his position as Australian Prime Minister to Tony Abbott. He says, Tony Abbott is the single most destructive politician in modern Australian politics. That's a senior Australian politician saying that about him. Are you totally comfortable with a climate change denier representing us on the world stage?
Well, can I say, I've never met Tony Abbott. I don't agree...
It's amazing. He's not got many friends in government. I don't know how he got elected.
I don't know him. I mean, I don't agree with him on issues like climate change. I certainly don't agree with some of his reported views about LGBT rights. However, I do know that he was Prime Minister of a major trading nation in the Southern Hemisphere. He does have experience of trade deals. Frankly, we should be harnessing the part-time advice and support of people with that sort of background. But I must say that I think that doesn't mean that the government is therefore bound to agree with the world view of every person who
like
seek advice
Sweeney Todd was a good barber.
Well, you know, there's lots of people we can take advice from on certain things, but we can also say, well, on other matters, we disagree. The Prime Minister was clear about that. I'm certainly clear about that. Frankly, you know, he is best confined to giving advice about trade, and whilst he's got his right to express his view, I don't think the government would be following his view in other respects.
Yeah, California's burning and he's a climate change denier.
Well, look,
I mean, you just have to hold your nose and accept that he's good at trade?
You know, his views on climate change are a matter for him. They're not the views of the government. We're not asking for his advice on climate change. We're asking for his advice on trade, and that's it.
Oh, we're out of time. I'd love to chat to you for much longer. We do something on a Wednesday called A Quick Question, where our viewers can ask questions directly. It takes about 20 minutes. Will you come back and do one of those for us at some stage?
It sounds fun, actually. OK. Well,
was that a yes?
Yeah. Let's see what we can do, Kay. Let's see what we can do. All right?
Fantastic.
You know, we're all busy, but I would be happy to oblige you.
Fantastic.